Africa is maybe not the next China. China's rise to global power is one of the most remarkable transformations in modern history. After decades of stagnation under Mao Zedong's strict communist policies, China opened up its economy in 1978 under Deng Xiaoping's leadership. Introduced sweeping market reforms, blending socialism with capitalism. This allowed private business to grow and invited foreign investments, kickstarting unprecedented economic growth. China leveraged its massive, low-cost labor force to become the world's manufacturing hub. Africa has much of the same going forward. Low labor costs, a huge and growing population. However, its so-called rapid growth has stagnated, leaving many to wonder, is Africa the next China? No, or at least here is why I think not. Nigeria, referred to as China's China, once the biggest economy on the mother continent, has fallen from grace. This is Nigeria's population pyramid today, and this is China's population pyramid in the 1960s. With such similarities, you'd think Nigeria would be ramping up, taking advantage of that young workforce, just like China did with payday. However, this is just not the case. You see, whilst China's GDP growth looked like this, Nigeria's looks like this. As you can see, Nigeria's economy almost shrank threefold over the past 10 years, whilst China's grew rapidly. This has many causes, but namely political corruption. Nigeria's political corruption has been a major roadblock to its development. Despite being Africa's largest oil producer, billions of dollars in oil revenue has been siphoned off by corrupt officials over the decades. The country's political elite often prioritizes personal enrichment over public service, with embezzlement, kickbacks, and bribery deeply embedded in the system. Government institutions that are meant to provide basic services are weakened by cronyism and nepotism. High-profile corruption cases, like the mismanagement of oil funds and the looting of public coffers, have drained resources that could have been used to improve infrastructure, healthcare, and education. This corruption undermines trust in government, discourages foreign investment, and exacerbates poverty and inequality. While anti-corruption efforts have been launched, such as initiatives by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commissions, or EFCC, political interference and a lack of accountability have limited their effectiveness. The result? A vicious cycle where corruption fuels underdevelopment, leaving millions of Nigerians struggling despite their country's vast wealth and potential, oil reserves, and natural resources. All is squandered by the government. So, if Nigeria is not the next China, why not other African countries? Kenya, like China, has an amazing location, being open to global trade routes and having plentiful resources, yet it struggles as well. One of the main issues is high public debt. Kenya has borrowed heavily to fund infrastructure projects like roads and railways, but the returns on these investments have often fallen short, leaving the country with a growing debt burden and shrinking fiscal space to address other needs. Unemployment and poverty are also persistent problems. While Nairobi's tech industry and tourism sector thrive, many Kenyans, especially in rural areas, lack access to opportunities and basic services like healthcare and education. This disparity fuels inequality and hampers social cohesion. This has led to major riots, especially in the capital Nairobi, against the government. Additionally, corruption remains a major obstacle. Public funds are frequently mismanaged, and scandals involving misappropriated development funds erode trust in government institutions. Climate change further compounds Kenya's struggles, with erratic rainfall and droughts threatening agriculture, a sector that employs, still to this day, about 70% of the population. These interconnected issues hinder Kenya's ability to fully realize its potential as a regional economic powerhouse, leaving millions vulnerable despite the country's remarkable resources and strategic location. Another country with a strategic location, and finally, Mozambique, a country strife with natural beauty and resources. Yet, just like Kenya and Nigeria, Political corruption has led to a failure, with just a few days ago, protests spread across the country from Maputo, with many displaced and killed, whilst the economy contracts. This relationship between people and government is the main perpetrator in the failure of Africa to reach meteoric rise, just like China. But, I hear you ask, China was also corrupt and still had growth. How is this the case? Well, let me enlighten you. While presidents such as Bola Tinubu, William Ruto, and Daniel Chapo squandered public funds, the Chinese presidents were corrupt, but in a unique way, encouraging corruption if it boosted speed and efficiency. Think of it like this. In Kenya, the government will take the funds and not build a road. The same road is built insanely fast in China due to private enterprises bribing the government to rid red tape, using the country's corrupt nature to develop, unlike many African nations today. You see, whilst corruption plagues many countries, China uniquely put itself in a situation where corruption benefited itself. So, to conclude, Africa is maybe not the next China, at least for now, as the nations of the continent fail to truly capture their potential due to corruption, and not even a beneficial type of corruption. If they are able to establish themselves as trade hubs and global/regional powers, they will be able to rise above the corruption that's plaguing them, and the continent will truly be the next China. But for now, it does not seem like this will be the case.